Hi guys, my name's Emma and let's talk spooky stuff. By now, you would have seen my Midsommar reaction video. It was a reaction because it wasn't really well thought out. It was harsh, it was rash, it was spontaneous. It was my initial reaction. And coming out of a cinema, especially for a film like that, I couldn't really put into words exactly how I felt about the film. And it definitely takes a few days to think about it, let alone, I think, multiple watches. So I went back and I've seen Midsommar again, and I'm here to explain to you my final verdict. The second time watching the film definitely provided the clarity that I was looking for. I did say the first time I saw it, I was looking for messages on the walls, interpretations, all that kind of thing, and I didn't see any. This is because I didn't know what I was looking for, and I think that you can only really understand that the second time you see it. The second time was also very important for me because the first time I went and saw it, because there was so much hype around it, and it came out so late here, I went to a special screening where they had music and food and all that kind of stuff, and everyone was very hyped. The crowd was very boisterous and laughing throughout the whole film. I do still think that Ari Aster made parts of this film funny because I went and saw it today and it was in complete silence, and you could hear the moment where the punchline was meant to make the crowd laugh, more so for the Joker's dialogue, but it was definitely a different vibe altogether seeing it in silence and it being taken really seriously. I felt like the film was so much stronger and it was really the way you're meant to watch it, obviously. But before I get into it, this leads me to a question that I want to pose to you guys. Do you think it is good that a film should be seen a second time? And I definitely think Midsommar should be seen a second time. It was great to get the initial shock of it all, but you can't really know how genius it is until you watch it for a second time. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Is it a good thing that a film needs multiple watches for you to clearly understand it? I know some people are out there going, I understood it the first time, but no, you didn't understand all the things that were in the background that were coming to fruition later in the film. So there was things that no matter how smart you are, you can't have known the first time around. So let me know what you think about that down below, if multiple screenings are a good thing or a bad thing for a film. And you can totally be in the gray area, kind of like me. I guess it's all subjective to the film. But the interesting thing about this is I was very rash, as I said in my initial screening. I was talking about or joking about how it was a breakup film, and I'm here today to plead my case about what the film actually means. And I don't think I was far off. Although I might not have articulated it in the best way, I still think I was onto something. In fact, this is my interpretation of Midsommar. The term Ada Stupa comes from the sites where a ritual took place in the Nordic prehistoric times. In this ritual, elders threw themselves or were thrown off cliff faces to their death. The reason for this is because they were seen as too old to support themselves or their family. However, research also shows that this may just be a wicked tale inspired by an old Icelandic saga in an episode known as The Story of the Fools from the Valleys. Swedish linguist Adolf Noreen brought the idea of this just being a myth to light in the 19th century, and it is now accepted among many researchers that this practice of suicide from these cliff faces never existed. But even today, many Nordic countries have cliff faces named after the Ada Stupa. Aster used this to explain the village's end of season tradition. At the age of 72, the villagers sacrificed themselves back to the earth, and we were all very shocked by this scene, but in particular, it draws a parallel for Dani. Dani is astonished not only by the graphic scene, but haunted by the fact that after experiencing her own loss, they could do it so willingly. Dani's sister has committed suicide and doing so taken her parents with her, and the act of suicide being shown in such a different light is very alarming to her. In this scene, we see people owning their demise, which is very jarring for the tourists. An elder goes on to explain to the tourists in this scene that it is no good to look back. It corrupts the spirit. During this scene, we see something that haunts Dani so much being turned into something completely different, turning death into freedom. Dani is already past the breaking point, and her boyfriend Christian lacks any sort of emotional intelligence. Dani begs him not to leave, makes excuses for him, and is downright unwanted and ignored by him. She feels like she's a burden, and her character is always leaning in while he is leaning out. You'll find that Dani speaks a lot with her emotions. She uses her hands a lot when she talks. She uses expressions. She's living in her vulnerable state, and Christian is just the opposite. he is stone cold. And even when she approaches him after the fact with the cliff jumping, he says he is shocked, but there is no look on his face. He is completely emotionally detached. Now that Dani has lost her family, Christian is the only person that she feels like she has left. But when Dani meets the people of Hagar, she's invited with open arms and kindness. Peled talks to her about knowing how she feels because it happened to him too. His family was burnt up. He tells her that although his family did die, he always knew what it was like to be held by a real family because they stepped up for him, and that she deserves the same. She deserves to be held, he says, and he even goes on to ask if Christian feels like home to her. We see things like this throughout the whole film. The people are just grateful to be around Dani. This is something she is not accustomed to. And in her nightmare, she sees everyone leaving her just like her family did, except it's just the Americans. It's not the people of Hagar. She goes from feeling very lonely to feeling accepted, which leads me to the May Queen dance is the turning point. The dance is explained by an elder as being started by a young woman who was determined to drive out the Dark One by dancing. As Dani starts dancing, we see her character begin to change. She starts feeling comfortable and the darkness is going from her. She can understand her sisters as if she's part of the family. She feels like she belongs. When there are only 8 people left in the contest, they stop to congratulate themselves and others congratulate them. It's such a big honor to get that far in the contest. And she looks over at Christian and he's just staring at her. Obviously he's gone through his own stuff at that point of the film, but it really shows how everyone wants her to succeed except for him, and he is holding her back. He is not the thing that she needs in her life to succeed. Furthermore, in the following events, she is praised when she does feel sadness and trauma. She isn't silenced or left to feel like a burden. Her sisters cry with her, they feel her pain. And this is something that the villagers do. They share each other's pain. They share her pain. They share the pain at the very end when the temple is burning. They share the man who is screaming. They share his pain. And that's what it is. It's sharing. It's being emotionally open. It's really dealing with the grief and sadness at that point and being there for somebody. And I can't think of a stronger way to be like, I feel you, I'm with you. So in this moment, she goes from feeling like a complete burden to feeling validated by people she doesn't even know. And finally, she is valid. At the end of the day, Ari himself calls this film a breakup movie. He said it's less of a horror movie and more of a fairy tale. And to be honest, if you go back and you watch my initial reaction, I think I actually got it. What I want to tell you about Midsommar is, yeah, it's a story about a woman realizing how bad her boyfriend is for her and kicking him to the curb in the most stylish way. Again, not very articulate, but it's there. Dani must ride alone. She is valid in her grief and she has found acceptance on the other side. In the last shot, we see her smile. She has finally let go. It corrupts the spirit to look back, so she must ride alone. Sure, there are so many different meanings and there's so much research that went into this film about Nordic culture, but I really see this film this way. It is a breakup movie for sure, and it is about someone letting go of everything and not holding on to something that is bringing them down, and they are able to ride alone instead of leaning on someone who is obviously not worthy of their time. I really loved your comments on my last video and your corrections of the things I said. I thought that was really great, and I really loved the parallels you all had between Hereditary and Midsommar. I did not pick any of that up, so thank you so much for those comments. They were great. But at the end of it all, Midsommar is a story about Dani, a woman who is growing up and letting go. She becomes finally comfortable in herself, and of course, unfortunately, it's with a little help of a death cult, but that's just like a small detail. I'm kidding. It was a great film and I really loved seeing it the second time. And when everything is down on paper for Dani, Hagar doesn't look so bad. What do you guys think that the overwhelming message from the film is? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below as always. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have, please hit subscribe. And if you want, you can hit that notification bell. I've heard that it like notifies you or something. If you did like it, please give it a thumbs up. It helps me out a lot. And I'll talk to you guys very soon. Stay spooky. Bye.